everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we take off from where we left in the previous episode and we turn to another important data type. It's called a dictionary. Remember, in the previous episode we had a sensor that emitted temperature and our server captured them as they arrived. For today's task, let's suppose we want to store the max temperature recorded from the sensor for each day in the current month. Let's see how we do that. First, we should see if we can use a set for this. To start with, remember our objective is to store the max temperature of each day for a month. If we just store the max temperature for each day in a set, then while reading the temperature, we won't know for which day that temperature is for. The first temperature read from the set need not to be for the first day. This is because a set does not remember the orders. This is not the only reason. Suppose multiple days of a month have the same maximum temperature. Then a set cannot store the same value more than once. So you see, we cannot use a set for storing max temperature for each day of a month. So can we use a list instead? Interestingly, it's possible. Every list has an implicit index. We can treat each index as a day for the current month. For example, index 0 for day 1, index 1 for day 2, and so on. Then we can store the max temperature corresponding to each day as the index. Later, if we want to know the max temperature for a specific day, say 16th day, then all we need to do is access the item at index 15. This is because day 1 is stored against index 0. Are we good so far? I hope so. But feel free to leave comments in case you have any doubts. Now let's add a little more twist. Suppose instead of the day of the month, we want to store the max temperature per city. Can you find out how we can use lists for this? One option is to use two lists, one for the cities and other for max temperatures. First, we assign each city an index and then use the second list to store the max temperature for the corresponding city's index. For example, if a city, Prague, is given index 1 in the first list called variable city underscore list, then in the second list, let's call it max temperature list, we can store the temperature 25 at index 1. The code would be something like max underscore temp underscore list within third bracket 1 equals 25. Similarly, when someone asks for the temperature of a city, first we need to find out the index for the city and then using the index find the temperature from the second list, max temperature list. A curious fact is that computer scientists have found a better way of storing temperatures for each city than using two lists, one for cities and another for temperatures. This method is using a new data type called hash map. It uses some interesting concepts that make the retrieval of temperature for a city much faster than using two lists. First, note that a hash map is a special kind of map, and a map is also a data type which always organizes its elements as a pair of items. Each pair consists of an anchoring item and a value associated with this item. For example, using the case of storing max temperature of cities, each pair of items will have a city as the anchoring item and its max temperature as the associated value. There will be as many pairs as the number of cities' temperatures we would like to store in a map. The anchoring items are similar to indexes in a list. But in list, indexes can only be integers, whereas in map, they can be any data type, string, integer, boolean, etc. When anchoring items can be any data type and not restricted to integers alone, They are also called keys. So in the ongoing example, each city is a key and the corresponding max temperature will be the value for the key. This is why a map is often called a key value pair store. To gain a good speed of accessing any element, maps should apply special techniques of storing keys. When a map uses the technique of hashing for storing keys, it's called a hash map. Interestingly, Python does not use the term map or hash map. Instead, it uses the term dictionary for this. Now let's take a quick look at constructing a dictionary. Let's open Colab. See, it prints a dict type. We can access the temperature of a city by the city name, which is also called a key. The syntax for accessing the values is analogous to accessing the values in a list. The only difference is that in maps we use the term key, while in lists we use the term index. Remember, by convention, an index indicates an integer type, whereas a key indicates any data type. Well, there are few restrictions for key, but we will not discuss about it for now. Now let's look at this code that prints the max temperature for the key Prague. Remember, the max temperature for Prague is also called a value for the key Prague. Now, you could see that when we consider only the integer key for a dictionary, it has a certain similarity with a list. The next obvious question is, what should we call the items of a set? Should we find resemblance with indexes or keys or values? Any thoughts? Well, since entries of a set are not restricted to integer types, they should not be called indexes. Also, we should note that as far as the data types are considered, there is almost no difference between a key and a value. So the elements of a set can be considered as keys as much as the values of a map. Well, the catch is the difference in the usage. For example, when we consider a set of cities, then the cities are the anchoring items. Likewise, when we consider a set of max temperatures, then the temperatures are the anchoring items. With this line of reasoning, the items of a set are always anchoring elements, and that's why we call them keys. Finally, remember that similar to a set, all keys in a dictionary are unique as well. A dictionary does not allow any duplicate keys. That's all for today. In the next episode, we'll learn a few more closing details on the types of collections. But before we go, one piece of advice. Do not learn the collection types by their syntax. The creators of Python could have used some other syntax if they wanted to. It is rather vital to understand why we need a set when we already have a list. And likewise, why can't we use a dictionary with a dummy value instead of a list, and so forth. Answers to these whys would take you a long way forward. Keep thinking. See you soon. Ciao.